here's the thing I love about the UF, or I'm going to get this right, the UFL being in week 3. It's at this point you have to be a hardcore to enjoy spring football. You're already over that like first flirtation with, am I gonna like this? Is it new? Do I get to see the Rock? It's Easter. Is it like you're over all of those like fancy like pretty accommodations? At this point, you either like it or you don't. And here's the fun, fascinating part I find about gambling that I think goes underappreciated. Yes, maybe it is the degenerates that keep it interesting, that generate the attention, that keep, or maybe, for example, we are of great value to women's basketball, and that's part of the reason college women's basketball was so popular, you know, this decade opposed to the last decade. Maybe this generation has a lot to say about that with some of these niche sports. I mean, we saw it with League of Legends during COVID, for example. But I mentioned it at the end of this last show, and I wanted to bring it up again. I'm done apologizing for enjoying gambling and all of its benefits. And this is one of them, that you can take a niche sport and that you can really enjoy it and you can deep dive and grind and do all the gritty, nasty, investigations on Twitter and trust, half cock, beat reporters. And I love all that stuff. I don't know. Maybe that makes me grunge like some kind of like anti rock band lover. I don't know. Maybe like because I'm not mainstream, sporting right now, I've fallen in love with it more. But I've really enjoyed the product. Do you guys have any comments on that kind of takeaway or anything you want to say? Because I do think we're at the point where you either love this sport or you hate it, and I just think we're going to keep making money.
I agree with you, dude. Like, every game I've gotten to watch has just been a really good football game. And honestly, I like the mechanic. I've always liked the get rid of the field goal, the easy chip shot bullshit. Make you run some sort of play. What's your good play? How many teams in the NFL would actually just be like, I think Mahomes and them would go for 3 every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, one, Andy Reid, and 2, they're probably better from 10, 15 out than they are from 5 out, pushing it in. Whereas Philly will just take the 1 point every single time with the tush push.
Yes.
Like I like that mechanic. I'm hoping that's the one the NFL brings over at some point.
Well, and that's the thing, Gov. Instead of making like a declarative statement and being like, "Oh, that's a gimmick," or they like a lot of people will dismiss these kind of like nuances that the UFL is doing.
The word gimmick is the only part of that that's bad. If you say gimmick, everyone then thinks it's a
Right.
joke. If I say it's a mechanic of the game,
right.
Well, now you want to dig into the mechanics of the game and see what's working.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, and I want to make this clear. I would have loved this sport in week 1. I would have loved it in week 2, 3. Gambling does motivate me to enjoy the sports I've already enjoyed in my childhood. It does help me enjoy basketball. It does help me enjoy the NFL. And you're right. When people put certain labels on things, I think people can be misunderstood. If you just viewed this as a good football to go along with the UFC's legendary weekend, to go along with the Masters, I think people could just be like, hey, you know what? This is a great addition to a great weekend, of sports. If we try to be like, oh, well, is it going to compete with the Masters? Is it going to pull viewership from the UFC? That's where we get kind of silly. They made this point this week about, Caitlin Clark and the whole thing. And it was at some point we could either argue whether we should have been paying attention to, Cheryl Miller or some of these other great historical women's basketball players of the past, or we can just celebrate the fact that we're in an era where we can watch more sports than ever before, and we're in an era where you can literally pick up an app and watch almost any sport you want. And so we can celebrate those moments without diminishing the past or trying to compare and contrast. I think that's a very valuable kind of soapbox moment. So forgive me if I derailed the lineup builder show just for that point, but I think it's a very valuable one to make and very poignant given the weekend that we're about to embrace. Grace, we just saw women's basketball. The UFC is about to have their 300th event. It's historic. It's big. I mean, obviously, I'll have another one in my lifetime, but generationally, all the fighters I grew up with are going to retire. There is no 400 for them. So this is huge. There's like 10 championship fighters. And this is one of those moments where people are like, well, this is for the hardcore fans. No, it's also for the casuals too. If you've never tried the UFC, there's 10 champions going to be fighting tonight, or Sunday. 4 more or current champions. Like, this is the perfect time to try the sport out. And I just wish more people had that mindset.
I will mention one thing about what we talked about a few minutes ago with the word gimmick and how important language is, because when it comes to the sport of football, as the NFL has been the obvious leader for decades in it, whatever unique thing about a different football league has that can be called a gimmick. People can say whatever they want about it, but sooner or later, it's gonna be watched under the eye by NFL employees to the point where they're gonna start to take notes and think about implementing stuff that the UFL is doing too. They proved that they did that with the XFL back in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna be nothing new if they start to copy the UFL.
I would agree. Speaking of copying, Juno talks about how our research was on point last week and how, we really helped him. I'm glad for that, truthfully. But also, you did it. Just because we gave you a player, just because we gave you a theory of an idea how to play something, you still put that lineup in. That was still your money. That's still your reward. And hopefully we can continue that. I mean, but that's the thing is I don't want to be so profit-oriented where I'm like, oh, this week we won, this week we lost. It's about a process. We're trying to build a mindset so that way when you guys come back, it feels like a family dinner. It's not just, hey, I fed Gino, I taught him how to fish. I fed him for that night. No, I want this to be a return thing where it's like, I taught you a recipe. Now you have a family tradition. You have a customary way to think. And that's what I've always tried to do with this podcast is kind of create that, unique ability to be like, here's the strategy. Here's what we're going to do. It's not always going to work, but I think over the long term, we'll be happy with the results.
Yeah. Most importantly, it's about, having fun, of course, and, staying within your means of what you can afford.
Which, let's be honest, the first couple of weeks we met the man, he was joking around. He's goofy, he's fun-hearted. But then we also reviewed his lineup last week, and he won some serious money. So that's what we want. We want that, like, here's this lineup, here's this really good structure, and let's have some fun with it, and let's enjoy our week. Like this is a Friday night. We went through a whole week of work, of stress, of different, things. And so this is an unwinding for us as well. So I couldn't be happier to, build some lineups, have some fun, and then just let it play out through the weekend. Like that's always fun to me. I know, Evan, we talked about it last week. We were watching the game live, and like part of me was like, I don't know if this game's over given the UFL rules. And then we kind of had that fun back and forth. And then, but still you're like, hey, wait, I'm wrong, but this is also fantastic for our lineup. So that's the kind of cool part about being a responsible gambler is there's so many different layers of why this is important or what this could mean,
Yeah, and it was like I said on the last show, I had forgotten about the make it take it rule that the UFL had in place. So I thought St. Louis was going to beat San Antonio. But then San Antonio, bless their offense, they put it together and they got that 1-point victory.
Smart team, knew what the rules could do, knew that they were still in play.
Yeah, and honestly, I remember at that game they went for it on a fourth and I think it might have been a 4th and 1 early in the game, and they could have kicked a field goal and made it a one-possession game, but they went for it anyway. I thought that was the wrong decision at the time, but you just have so much more time now that it's completely different. When you have a make it take it, the way you can manage clock is drastically different.
Yeah, it's nothing at all like managing a clock in the NFL, which a lot of NFL head coaches still can't figure out how to manage a clock. Matt Nagy.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Well, it's funny.
I
There was
definitely heard it, but I was thinking it too, so I don't know.
there's I forget who it was. There was an NFL player who was talking about how, you know, he thinks that it probably was the quarterback that is escaping my name. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. He said that he thinks that most Madden players are better at clock management than NFL coaches because they're put through that situation over and over and over and over again.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. There, like you guys may not have heard about it, but I was just watching Pablo Torre's podcast, and it reminded me of the game. Football Manager.
Yes, I watched
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god. I can think of a game like that and how it would be awesome. Where at no point in time are you ever gonna play a game of soccer in this Football Manager.
Mm-hmm.
But you will manage a football club 100% full. And the game is so up to date that you can actually look up real stats on players. Any player, any soccer player that has kicked the ball from Europe to Colombia over the age of 15.
Yeah, and it's so simply.
They actually have scouts doing it so that it's the real players in this game.
Yes. I mean,
No matter what.
We're talking about people that started off in that game who now have become professional coaches, who have taken on professional roles because
there's clubs that say if you're in my scouting department and you don't know what Football Manager is, I don't even talk to you. And it's that powerful of this video game is that powerful of a scouting tool.
Well, Gov, the UFL talked about it last week on the broadcast. I don't usually have the audio on, but I did catch the visual representation of it, so I did turn the audio on for that portion. And they were talking about the virtual headsets and how quarterbacks will use the virtual headsets and realities to create and to customize a sackable or a pressured situation so that way they avoid injuries. I think when we are so pulled back from the advantages of technology and we're so dismissive of its positivity because we don't want to accept change, I think that's where you run the risk of not being adaptable. And I think to go back to my original point with gambling, I think that also DFS or just being a smart football mind, I think that all plays in. Part of what made us successful last week, for example, was that we had the news on Durant a lot quicker than a lot of people did. And we trusted our instincts. It wasn't just that we had the news and we had some kind of secret that no one else had. We believed it, And part of that belief is coming together with the four of us or the three of you specific and saying, "Hey, Evan, who do you like this week, and why does that make sense to go? Why does that make sense to time?" That's for me.
Before we move too far ahead on that point, too, I wanted to offer a bit of perspective as well. Professional pilots have used Microsoft Flight Simulator for at least decades to further enhance their career and get the practice they need to continue their careers. It's not that much different with another simulation software like any football management simulation game that you want to name that's out there. It's not that much different.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like comparing Madden on the Nintendo, compared to what it is on the PS5. Of course, there's simulations and virtual reality versions of reality, but don't act like these simulations don't improve or, that they're not taking new technology, coaching information, players' experiences and improving that situation as well. I do think there's a good chance that the fan experience is going to change, like front row seating is going to change at big events, and you're going to be able to put on a headset in 20 years and watch a big event that way.
That's a good call on that too, Juno, as well. Surgeon Simulator, another one.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Anyway, we've deep dived into our nerd side for long enough.
I think it's also, if we're going to get back into the UFL, I think it's also worth mentioning that ESPN Bet right now has Birmingham still in the lead with the UFL championship odds plus 180, and the Houston Roughnecks are dead last at plus 2200. The next one up is Michigan Panthers at plus 1100. The Roughnecks are ass this year.
Yes.
Whoa. No, I mean, I believe that is the lowest total game on the slate, so like I'm not surprised.
Also, I do think they're bad, but their defense has not seemed to be terrible. But
Yeah, that's a bright side at least.
no, their defense isn't terrible, so I think they're being a little harsh on that. To say they're definitively the worst team, I would not be shocked at an upset. Though I do expect Houston to still lose.
It's easier to see the good when there's only 8 teams too.
Yeah, I'm just saying, don't be shocked if Houston wins this game.
Well,
I mean, it looks like both teams are going to be playing different quarterbacks. So like,
yeah, when you're playing a different quarterback by week 3, and it isn't exactly completely because of injury, there's an issue.
Yeah, some of that, yeah.
but to that point, it's not the same as like an NFL schedule where like these division rivals are built in, these like structures, the coaching staffs, there's real rivalries, there's this like camaraderie, there's this known factors. Wade Phillips is coaching a totally different team than he was just last year. So it could even be somewhat the same league, but you're coaching different players. And we're still only 3 weeks in. And like, you got to remember, they're not getting a professional preseason. They're not getting even their version of preseason is done in a joint variety because they don't have enough practice facilities for them to have their own. So this is still pretty nuanced in terms of, what we should expect. I will also say, because we won, so I can make this point, even though I've made it many times, you should diversify your portfolio each week. So like week 1, there's obviously more chance for the unknown, right? There's more chance for things to surprise us. Well, as salaries change, and we're about to find that out, they tighten up salaries for certain players. So you're constantly trying to adapt to find that new value, to find, okay, they've upped this guy's price, they've changed this guy's price. Does he still fit that boundary of expectations where he can still exceed his price? Or has he reached a point where he is no longer the value? Even though he's made me money in the past, even though I can still like him, I can still like his team's season-long output, to Evan's point. Does he fit this lineup this week? And I think being a weekly game, it also always presents that challenge. And that's what the thing I'll give you credit for, Gov. I think you're very good at. You hone that in better than I do. Because sometimes I am so emotional. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and sometimes that pours over to my DFS lineups. Once a guy wins me a lot of money, it's hard for me to quit him. I'm still talking about Michael Thomas sometimes and Julio Jones. And, so even I get pulled with my money in some of these emotional directions. And I think you do a good job of sometimes going simulation mindset.
I can have my biases.
Yeah. Well, I do think they're important,
Yeah.
Confirmation bias.
But I also have good research behind it. Like, I'm not just blindly for the entire season saying we're going to play Kyle Juszczyk in the Super Bowl. Like, I'm not just blindly saying that for no reason.
Yeah. Even though that is a good example because it did make us profit. It made sense in the end, but you also had an emotional attachment to that play as well. So it made it easier to trust that projection.
When once I'm able to take a step back, look at it, yeah.
Just like
that's still, I agree, that can still get you in mind. Like, there are still players, more so in NBA. There's guys I like that I get pissed off when I play them and they just don't do well.
Well, just like last week, we all had the information at some level. I think me and you had it at a deeper DFS level that Durant could play. But still, and we had other DFS guys, Double J, we talked about his lineup, and we talked about how we got Juno on the play, and we can be proud of that. There are different investment points in which we can be proud of that Durant play, but that doesn't mean that we're going to find it this week, or that we have, the go-to play this week because we had it last week. There's always a difference to why you play somebody, And for that example, before we transition to the lineup, because I have more money this week, and because I've been successful the last 2 weeks in, the UFL, I made some bets on the games in the sports book. That doesn't mean I went crazy. It doesn't mean I put like $50 on AJ McCarron to have 300 yards passing. I didn't, go outside my means. But you do start to experiment with different ways to grow your bankroll in smart ways, and I think that's appropriate. But you have to be smart about that as well. Anything else before we start this lineup?
I do have some unrelated, unconfirmed rumor right now. If anybody follows hockey, the Arizona Coyotes right now are rumored to be moving to Utah, Salt Lake City. That's according to Elliot Friedman, and
that might work as a hockey town, but
So he first announced it via a tweet that's now deleted and wrote, "More, there is still work to do. Timing is obviously fluid, but players told of the pending move, and there will be an opportunity to see the potential new surroundings." So that's the thing. That's why I called it a rumor, because I don't know how true it is at this point. He deleted the tweet.
Yeah, when they delete tweets, that's definitely a backtrack. Like that could be because he's trying to gather more information or the correct information, or he's just trying to like erase history because he made a mistake. Who knows? I will say this: expansion
could just be like a Tom Holland thing. He wasn't supposed to tell anyone yet.
Yeah, it could be. But that's where expansion can be good, but it has to have a purpose. You can't just expand because you're like, hey, a fan base, they deserve a hockey team. It has to make sense, because otherwise, then you end up with the XFL the original time with Vince McMahon, where it's like it sounded good, but it ended up being a carnival because it didn't have the right structure.
You grabbed the wrong contest. You went UFC, not UFL.
Oh, I did. See?
God damn it, Logan! Next in alphabetical order.
They haven't made me enough money yet. I almost got the letter combination down.
We can talk about the fights. Like, we can talk about the fights. If we want to talk about the fights, we can do that. But let's get to the UFL lineup.
Let's build this lineup first.
The problem is, if I talk about the fights, and that's a whole other hour, because every fight is really.
Oh, that's a whole other podcast. Like,
exactly.
we can talk about the fights, but.
All right, Donnie, do you want to get the number generator to see who's picking when?
I got it set up, and I've been waiting.
27.
69.
72.
Give me Rory Williams tonight. Go 11.
18.
Ooh.
Oh, Logan's first.
So I get the stake again, back-to-back weeks.
Nice.
By the way, just in case people are new, because we did win, so maybe we got some new viewership lingering around. We don't pick quarterback the first pick, given the lack of teams and trying to get as much diversity. But we do go with the draft order, and then obviously try to fill in the quarterback with what makes sense with the lineup.
I like that it's a team effort at quarterback, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
It puts more emphasis on your picks as well, I feel like.
All right, so Logan, what are you going to start with? You like a running back this week? Is there a wide receiver? Do we want to go with one of these tight ends that just keeps getting targets? Do you want to just slam the defense? I don't know.
I do have to mention, just in case you haven't noticed, QT being out is a big deal. He did bring NFL pedigree. The defenders are more known for defense. It's not just a namesake. I mean, they literally have staked their coaching staff more on their defense and their aggression. I think that could open up some value, because if nothing else, it shuffles the draft board. So for that reason, you would think, like, let's go with one of these guys. The problem is I don't really like any of them besides the really cheap one, and that would probably make you guys disgusted.
Well, we've got money to spend, so discuss.
There is one that I do like that we've seen something from already.
See, we have picks. Just pick your guy, Logan.
Yeah, just pick a guy.
I think we can figure it out.
Okay.
You don't gotta go cheap. Just pick your.
I'm gonna go with the best play still on the board. I feel like, even though he is pricey, give me the former Buffalo Bill again with an NFL pedigree. Give me Edman. He's played well.
I think that's fine to keep playing Aitman until he proves that he comes down from his high.
Yeah, you're going to have to prove that one to me, because like I say, he has an NFL body. He has NFL pedigree. He was drafted highly. He's not a flash in the pan.
Yeah, I mean, I know it could be. There might be some people out there that might say, "Oh, well, that's just because of the touchdowns. Take him away, and he's not that worthwhile." He's still getting 6 and 7 targets. I like that, and he's doing great things per average yardage with them.
We're still at the point in the UFL where I feel like not enough people know the right information. So there's a lot of people taking zeros. This is one of the plays where, yeah, I might overpay for this, and he might not hit his ceiling or his his ceiling, but he's going to hit a floor. He's not going to get 0 points unless a major injury happens. So I'm going to take the safety still at a price that I think we can swallow.
I think it's a good pick. Who's second?
That'd be me. All right. I think I kind of want to do. I mean, there is a guy that I thought they were using a little more, but they did not last week. So I don't think I want to go him.
There is a guy.
I'm looking for a cheap running back. I'll let you guys know that.
I have 2 cheap running backs if you don't want to pick it. So
I am not opposed to going back to Durant. I don't think he'll be highly owned. He might be like 8 or 9% instead of 1%, but I don't think he's chalk this week.
Even against San Antonio's tough defense?
He's still behind Gallman.
Still behind Gallman? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Or at least maybe. Nope, Gallman actually didn't. Well, maybe. Like, it still looks like a split backfield, but like I could definitely go back to Durant at 7,300. The other one would have been.
I'm trying to stay quiet here, but Houston's got some good value that I will scoop up.
See, that's the other spot. Like Pledger.
Actually,
but like I liked the guy I was talking about at the beginning was Tion Evans, but like I thought they were going to use him more last week. I thought they said they liked him. They did not. So
I think we got to play one of these guys, in my opinion. That's what I would do.
Like Michigan has shown to not have, like, their defense is probably going to be a middle of the pack defense in this league.
What's up, Hustle? How you doing, buddy?
Good to see you, Hustle.
Yep. Yeah. All right.
If you have anything on ownership,
You know what? Well, let's just go with Pledger the fourth.
That's where I would have went.
6,500. Let's just get it in there.
I do think Evans would have been more of a fun, creative, like, let's get wild and crazy. But like I mentioned in this league, people have taken zeros. I think Evans could easily get you 0. Now, he could get you 15. Maybe he is the lead guy. But I don't think there's a chance that Evans gets 0 given his role. So I think the price just fits with what you expect too well to pass it up. Evan, I believe it's your pick because I think Donnie has
Yeah. So I'm going to take a chance on a Michigan Panther. Marcus Sims.
Why does that name sound familiar? But like I swear I've watched this league for 3 weeks. You think I would know that by now, but
yeah, I'll talk a little bit about Marcus Sims while you look for him and to get him in there. 5 targets week 1, 8 targets in week 2. I mean, he may not be catching every single target that he's getting. I mean, he's been way off so far with the way Michigan's offense has been. But when he gets the ball, he seems, well, not just seems, he is electric. So I don't mind playing him as a cheap option to open us up to other opportunities.
And I do like this opportunity take that you're taking to Evan, because there is a rumor that we could get a quarterback change to the Danny Etling of the Patriots ilk in the NFL. We could get that change based on injury, apparently. Or, let's be honest, EJ Perry hasn't looked that great so far this season. Like, he has taken bad decisions. I think it was week 1, for example. Michigan was about to score in the red zone, and he threw an ugly, just inexcusable interception at the goal line, like very reminiscent to the Seahawks.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not concerned about the quarterback situation right now for Michigan, as EJ Perry is expected to start this week. Even if they go to somebody like a Danny Etling, I highly doubt that's bad for somebody like Sims, who's proven that he can be electric when he gets the ball.
What I'm saying though is when you do see a quarterback change, we might see the targets go up, or just like having the production split between two quarterbacks, but still having the primary wide receiver. I think is a valuable way to kind of split the difference.
I really hope they don't go QBBC. Please no.
I mean, we've seen multiple quarterbacks used in one game before in this league, so
it is not unheard of.
Yeah. I think that's just a matter of just figuring out who can run the offense better, though, because there's no preseason.
Yeah, even Arlington's been using Logan and Perez more. So
you got to add Sims to the lineup, Logan.
I thought I did. Did I not hit him?
No, I think I distracted you.
Yeah, you must have.
Pocket sand.
Okay. So I wanted to be the salary saver this week, but
Beat you to
I
it.
believe in this league.
Yeah, suck that.
We do not need to spend. We do not need to spend anywhere close to all of our salary in this league.
Yeah.
The pricing's still off.
Agreed. If
You could, I think you get an edge by not spending your salary at this point.
You could.
So I'm gonna stick in my favorite play. He's gonna be my favorite play probably all year long. Sage Surratt. He gets too much work. He gets red zone work. He's going to have a big game eventually, unless he gets hurt.
The first time he has a 2-touchdown game, he's going to go like 4 for 50 and 2 touchdowns and just be a monster.
He's actually been really super consistent, and I think if he was a wide receiver, he would be like $2,000 more.
Yeah, I agree. I think just because he has that tight end mark next to his name, it's getting misconstrued
Or
what he is.
Last week, he dropped a touchdown. If he catches that touchdown and he gets 14 points instead of 7, for example.
And we went over 2 red zone targets in week 1. So he's going to have a multiple touchdown game this season.
And let's be honest, there's fewer teams, so the margins for getting things right is a lot more important. So when you're talking about red zone targets, obviously those are more high volume touchdown opportunities. They're going to matter more in a league like this. They just are. Who's your other pick, Donnie?
At this point, like with this sort of a lineup, like once we get Donnie's in, I think now we need to figure out what our stack is, because then we'll only have like defense and 1 pick left.
Yeah.
So get Surratt in there, and then let's look at the lineup and think what game do we actually want to stack
in here? Yeah.
See, I did the same thing where I clicked on the cool graphic. I made it like all nice, and then I forgot to click the button.
Because we saw with my lineup that just doing correlation of games and stuff gets you lower owned plays that people aren't on. So like we don't have to do much to get off some ownership. Which I'm not sure. Like Aitman's probably still going to be highly chalky.
Well, I'm bouncing back Aitman with Kirkland, honestly. I know we talked about possibly fading him, but we have so much salary, and now we have the 2 most dominant receivers the league has that we've seen anyway so far.
Yeah, but before we bounce anybody, let's just see who we can take at quarterback first, and then go from there.
Well, let's see. What do we have? 15-9? So we'd have, even if we went with the most expensive defense, we'd have 10-9. What's the quarterback pricing at?
That's the second most expensive. Oh, no, we can
literally afford whatever we want still with this lineup.
Yeah.
Whatever quarterback, whatever defense, and just leave whatever money's on the table. Love that a lot.
Yeah.
We've got the St. Louis San Antonio. Do we want to just play Garbers again? Like he's going to be like his offense looks like he's going to be throwing. It is a higher total game. Like we get the late game hammer. Like
I would play either one of the quarterbacks. I don't care which high expensive one.
Or do we?
I'm leaning Garbers here, just because.
I'd love to know if both of them are going to be 30%, or if we're going to get one that's going to be slightly less owned. I'd like to play that one.
I lean Garbers too, because he's the only quarterback so far who's even reached 40 passes. And
that's not true. Teamu has as well.
Well,
but you didn't notice that because
he was horrendous. I mean, that's not. Yeah, when I'm talking, I mean, I want some efficient numbers where that's going to get us some points here.
The reason why I lean Garbers is because if Garbers does well, then Kirkland also probably does well. As to if McCarron does well, there's definitely a way McCarron can do well and Aitman doesn't.
Correct. So they can save each other in a way. Also, why I lean is literally the physicality difference. Garbers runs the ball, and AJ McCarron does not. So if we're really, nitpicking here, I'm gonna at least nitpick in the way I want.
Yeah.
We've seen Garbers has gotten like 5 attempts each game on the ground.
Yeah, and that's really the tiebreaker for me, though. I feel like in order for Garbers to do well, Kirkland also needs to, compared to McCarron can take anyone with him.
I do want to make a quick quarterback point though, really quickly. Even Jordan Ta'amu is getting kind of worked in and out sometimes. I've noticed. We've seen the Nebraska quarterback Martinez get worked in Birmingham. There's a lot of 2 quarterback systems. Like I mentioned, Arlington's doing the same thing now that they're healthy. There was a lot of these quarterbacks that came in late to camp for contract reasons or injury reasons. So I don't think they're sold on their starting quarterbacks always. And this week we have an injury with Houston that's going to shake things up most literally.
Speaking of the DC quarterback situation, DeAndre Francois is out this week. So what that means is that it's going to be Jalen McClendon as the backup quarterback behind Teamo. Does that mean they're still splitting? Because Teamo has not given much confidence in me that he's going to be splitting starts for much longer.
I don't know. The problem is he's Teamo is priced like he is a guaranteed star in this league, and he's given me nothing to suggest he's a star.
Agreed.
So that would be my biggest problem away from him.
Yeah, I mean, he has a lot of usage, and that's it. But he has no. Yeah. The offense has no upside in scoring. I mean,
I don't ass.
Yeah, I don't see it.
The only advantage to playing Teamo would be his ownership. That's the only argument. If you made me play devil's advocate as a lawyer, that'd be my only argument. But I wouldn't even like it myself. It would not. I would not sleep well tonight.
I'd rather just eat the ownership and not play Teamo.
Yeah,
exactly. Or just go to one of these cheap guys, take a chance on a guy who looked good in a half of football, with Reed, who's going to be starting for Houston.
Yep.
Yeah. They did. I see no reason to go away from Garbers though.
Yeah, no, they're not right now because we don't even have a Houston receiver to go with them. But
I should mention very quickly, just in case people are like, well, Reed's a guarantee. They did sign a backup. He's not eligible for the contest this week, but they do have another backup. So it's not like he's guaranteed to get every look. He will get a lot of looks though for that price.
Now, can we go just show all the defenses for a second? Mm-hmm. This is the point I just want to make. Just all the defenses, Logan.
Click on DST.
Yeah. I do not care about the salary.
We don't have to.
No. Yeah, no. I don't care if we play the cheapest. What do we think has the best chance of doing well?
Either the Stallions or the Brahmas or possibly the Showboats.
I honestly really like Houston's defense.
I know they're horrible. But it's not their defense that's horrible, and I think.
I mean, they're playing a bad offense.
I will say
I'm not going to be against that, dude. You're going to correlate
and
running back. I'm not going to say no to that.
One of the reasons I like it though is because we know that in the NFL, at least, when you're facing a slow offense, even if you're not dealing with the greatest efficiency on defense, that is going to save those 10 points. That's a good safe floor for a defense. And Michigan, if they do succeed, it's going to be through the ground. They haven't proven any really offense. Now, we did take a Michigan wide receiver, which I think is actually going to make us different and unique.
That's what I was about to bring up too, Logan, is that being that the Roughnecks defense is going to be counterproductive rather, to Marcus Sims, we still have 1,600 on the table. Do we upgrade from Sims at this point?
So I do have one guy I would consider, which is a cheap guy.
Yeah.
They're down receivers. There's a lot of cheap guys to go from. I like Brandon Smith for the defenders. He's 54. He had 7 targets week 1.
And QT's out. And
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing with QT out. I was looking at either Harmon or Brandon Smith. Like, I
Yeah,
would be
that's
fine
where I'm leaning to. Who has the better body type?
Why did he only get 2 targets last week?
QT
No
did
idea.
play the whole game and got 9 targets.
Yeah. QT played not even a whole game and saw 9 targets. And now he's out.
So I do like one of the 2 DC guys, whichever we prefer. I'll look at their player cards and stuff. Who has the best body type?
Kelvin Harmon?
Harmon is 6'2", 215.
Okay, nice big body receiver.
I like Rollin. Technically, this has been my cheap guy I was considering in the beginning of the lineup. He is really cheap, though.
Can I see his boom log?
Brandon Smith is 6'2", 215.
Yeah.
So they've got 2 of the same kind of receiver.
Yeah.
I believe Smith also has experience in the NFL as a Jets wide receiver, mostly special teams.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
I do like the NFL pedigree, though. That does mean something in terms of talent.
I get it, but he just isn't getting the work to convince me otherwise.
Correct. I would lean Harmon myself, but
I would lean Harmon as well.
Let's just go Harmon.
They're both 6'2", 215, and their week 1s are also the same. Like, one had 6, one had 7.
It is Evan's swap, so I will give him the final word.
Yeah, it seems like a coin flip with QT out of the game, so we'll just have to take a chance here.
Yeah, I'm fine with being wrong on who it is, but someone's getting the work.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good point. Even if we're wrong, like I said, we're not always going to be right. But when we increase our chances of being right, that's what you want. And when you see a big target producer being out and the pricing isn't reflective, that's when you take advantage. That's what we did with Durant. It worked out, so now we look smart. But this is the same type of play. Whether he gets 0 or not, it's the same exact type of play.
Yeah, I really don't care which one gets the work. I will counter that by being right with the other guy if it does go wrong, personally. But either way.
And that's what I mean. Like, I have a bunch of side bets on the games and money lines and totals. So I don't need these lineups to always win. We just need to be even if you like say your lineup is doing bad at halftime and you just want to give up on it. It's not your week. Still watch the game because there are still things you're going to pick up in that second half that you can apply for the next week and apply for the next week.
Mine was doing bad last week till the end of the comeback, where Garbers ended up saving himself. Kirkland ends up having the touchdown. Mine was dead till that last 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, Garbers, for example, I believe he had minus points at halftime.
He doubled his points from the first 58 minutes in the last 2 minutes.
But I mean, me and Gov played him. I honestly think he, in the end of the first half, he had minus like a point and a half or a minus.
It was bad. I remember because I also had him.
Right. And yeah, we got lucky in some ways that he had the opposite effect in that second half. But like, you take on the luck when you gamble. That's part of it. Like, we are taking on part of the risk, And then we're also taking on the safety. Like, we're taking on the safety of Garbers because he's been so productive recently. Now, does that mean he's going to put up 25 points this week because that's his average? No. But we're paying for that safety and then taking chances elsewhere. That's what the game's about. Anything else you guys want to mention? Any other strategies you kind of want to, even if it's just a experiment or a theory to give the people a different look? Is there anything else you want to do?
It's hard to come up with anything, being that this is only an 18 football
It
league.
is, yeah. The fact that it's a small league, I think we've got most of our thoughts out on. Like, I have some thoughts, but I'll keep them. I kind of want to keep them for my personal lineup. Although, as we saw last week, a lot of our personal lineups and everything were very close to what we built on stream because we all know what we like. Like, am I going to have probably Pledgler and Aitman? Yeah. Maybe the Roughnecks defense,
who hopefully should get a minimum of 10 points.
And this exercise isn't saying dupe me or don't do me, or like everyone has to have their own accountability. And like if you want to risk the DraftKings standards, that's on your own account. And, you got to make that agreement with yourself. This is more of a thought experiment exercise, and then you guys do what you please. For example, Hustle comes in every week. I don't think he was taking our plays and playing them in a lineup, but all it takes is just the idea of a play. It's not always just the name. So I'm okay with that. I really think that's it. I mean, I'm trying to.
I mean, I was just looking at the odds, like with the first game, DC and Arlington. I like if it were an NFL week, I would already assume that okay, that's the high total. A lot of people are going to have DC and Arlington, and then stack the late game and get your right guys from the rest of the stuff. But the chalky quarterbacks are from that St. Louis and San Antonio game at the end of Sunday night. So I do think if your guys out there are building lineups, maybe trying to build with that DC and Arlington game is a different way. Make that your stack. Because I do think the way we built with AJ and Garbers and their pieces, that is probably going to be chalkier this week than normal, or at least than last week.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do that, you need to find a 1% owned Durant kind of play to play along with that stuff. But I think if you were to stack a different game and then just grab a piece from your late hammer, maybe just have Kirkland or just have Stevenson or just have Aitman or something like that.
Well, and the other thing I want to say is Arlington, they are defending champions of the XFL. Let's not forget that they were 4-6 going into last season's playoffs. They still won that championship. They're not terrible.
I do like Bob Stoops. He's one of the best coaches in the league.
So let's not forget the record doesn't always matter in these spring football leagues as it's early. They have time to test things out. They can possibly make the playoffs with a bad record. What matters is the end of the season. So they might try something different. Who knows?
To your point, we're about to see it now. I mean, I know a lot of the outs were like secondary players and backup quarterbacks, and quarterbacks that are being brought in, late last minute replacements for others. We haven't had that catastrophic injury or that like setback injury that really makes a DFS impact yet. We saw the kicker with destroying that Donnie mentioned. That's an emotional heartstring kind of moment. But we haven't seen that DFS injury shakeup yet. And we know with the physicality of football, it's coming. And that's where, being an NFL fan, that's the kind of stuff that you can not look forward to, but you can almost know that it is there as an anticipatory, hey, at some point this year, I'm going to have to worry about injuries because that's part of the game. So the depth charts are going to matter more and more each week as well.
And the other thing I want to say about while we brought up that injury is the news, if you guys didn't see, is the only thing that's going to happen really for him is he has 3 months in a neck brace, which is rough. But overall, he was very, very lucky.
Yeah, and it looks like not only is he receiving the emotional support he deserves and, is obviously getting a positive influence as much as you can get on Twitter and social media without actually knowing the guy personally. It seems like the UFL is kind of supporting him and medically supporting that as well. So, this is, I hate to say it this way, but this shows you that this league is legitimate when they have a professional setup for these kind of setbacks as well. So, I mean, that's why I have to applaud as a fan as well, to know that, okay, this is another example of, yes, this league is legitimate. Maybe DraftKings doesn't have big enough prize pools and not enough attention being put here and there. But one of the best examples of, hey, this is a legitimate league is how they handle injuries, how they handle these more serious matters.
Yeah, and if you remember the AAF, they barely had any. They didn't really have any insurance for the players at all.
They didn't even. They didn't even pay their players. No.
They didn't pay the players, and I'm pretty sure the players had to pay for their injuries out of pocket.
Yeah, they did because they ran out of money. There was lawsuits. We mentioned it at the beginning of the show, and you guys might not be big fans, but we see this a lot with the UFC being a monopoly, a lot of these smaller MMA organizations, even if they have the well intention, they can't always afford the kind of proper medical care or the proper backing. And then, people that need a fight or just opportunities to prove the athleticism are kind of left on. So, like, that's what I mean to come full circle, though, is like appreciate the G League, appreciate, spring football. Like, sure, it's not the NFL. It doesn't need to be. It's not supposed to be. And if me and Gov support that because we're gamblers, let us support it because it gives these guys a second chance. It literally springboards them into the preseason and other opportunities. So
the thing that I really like about the UFL too, though, is it feels like it's its own thing. Whereas the G League, I'm thinking of the NBA. In WNBA, they're always being advertised by the NBA. The UFL is doing this, by themselves. They feel like their own league.
Yeah, I've also appreciated to that point, Donnie, that they haven't tried to partner up and buddy with the NFL. Like, they are openly saying, "Hey, we're a different professional league. We know we're not at the level of the NFL, but we're not a sideshow league. We're not a secondary league. We're not the G League of the NBA."
Right. That's what I like about it the most.
Yeah.
Like the G League, I think, is advertised as a lesser league.
It is the minor leagues.
It is, but the way the UFL is doing it, it feels unique. It feels like it's not trying to be the NFL.
The UFL is still a professional football league, even if people are going to call it a minor league. It's not an official development league for the NFL. It's just another league for players who got cut from NFL rosters or just came straight out of college and didn't make an NFL roster to play. That's
what I'm saying I enjoy, because that way they're not tying themselves to the NFL and all of the other scrutiny that comes with that.
And they don't need to.
The pressure, right? They don't need to. And a lot of times I feel like I talked about it with, the WNBA and the development there is I feel like a lot of times, especially in the older generation, is they feel like they have to have that name recognition. That's not always the case.
Yeah. And the USFL, if you remember, they were hell bent on, we want to be the developmental league.
Yeah.
So the change in that ownership, the change in direction, I think it's been a big impact on the spring football as a whole.
Definitely.
There's also nothing wrong with being a development league to the NFL if someone else chooses to do that, or if that's the direction even this league ends up taking. But just make sure that that's your message and that's your intention.
Yeah, you need to have an identity of your own as well.
Right. You can't placate to whatever identity for the week. You have to have a structure, because that's what's going to make people feel confident to bet you, to have, that wallet of security. So anything else, Gov? You usually got one last big statement for the people. No? Nothing? Great.
I don't know if we want to dive into an NFL topic, but I at least wanted to rant about Justin Herbert, or we could save it for the next show if you guys want.
I don't even know where this would lead.
Let me buy some.
I'm intrigued,
Yeah.
and I need something to take me off this G League NBA going on tonight.
That's it. Give me the minute-long pitch, and then let me buy some khakis, and we'll start next show with
Sell me the card.
I can keep it to 1 minute. So here it is. There's a lot of people talking smack on social media right now just because the NFL draft hasn't happened yet, that people are wondering why Justin Herbert has not been traded from the Chargers ever since they hired Jim Harbaugh, because people are, for whatever reason, convinced that Harbaugh wants to go get his guy, J.J. McCarthy, and get rid of Herbert because of all these, he's seen a dip in his stats and all of a sudden he sucks and we got to get rid of him. I want people to read the fucking stats that Justin Herbert had. Yes, he did have a dip from last year, but even without Keenan Allen or Mike Williams in some games, he's still not a bad quarterback. Harbaugh would
They had
not
no running
the
game last
fucking
year.
Chargers if he didn't want Justin Herbert. And like what Donnie just said, an ass running game, and the blocking has gotten worse. So how's that for 1 minute?
It's pretty good.
That's good.
I will say, unfortunately, I've had this opinion for a while, and we can get into this more next week, because I do like the first 15 minutes to kind of just be this open dialogue. So we'll get into that more next week. We'll save our deep, but I will say one thing I really appreciate about these type of discussions is sometimes people get so enamored with who the starter is, or is this guy better than this guy? And then we end up doing a like top 5 list. Let's be honest, there's more than 5 good starting quarterbacks. And then like the moment your team underperforms, it's not always your quarterback's fault. It's not always your coach's fault. It's not always one person's fault. And sometimes it's just a combination of bad things. Like when your family gets sick, guess what? The likelihood that you're going to get sick go up dramatically. So sometimes the environment just doesn't fit for the situation. It's not anyone's fault. It's an environmental cause.
Yeah, and just, one more thing to finish that off, because Justin Herbert, we've seen it. He's good. He hasn't won yet in the playoffs, really. But the league is more talented than it's ever been. It's not like, it's just Joe Montana and, the handful of other guys. Mm-hmm. There legitimately are 10 guys in the NFL right now that could realistically be Pro Bowl quarterbacks legitimately. So the league's so full of talent at this point. They start early. They continue early. Mm-hmm. It's not the same anymore.
Let's be honest. Let's come full circle again. One last time before I wrap up here. The UFL is talented. The UFL has talented quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs. So if that's the case, that tells you that the NFL is talented. Like, stop pretending that this stuff doesn't exist and there isn't talent and skill. We just have to be willing to watch it. And I do think with the apps, with the ESPN apps, to watch the Masters or, these different things, there is more time, there is more viewership hours to be had with all these different technologies. You just got to want to. Do you want to or not? That's up to you.
All we want is competent football, and that's exactly what we're getting with the UFL.
And some people are just going to want to complain about their quarterbacks not being in the top 5. So there's always going to be those, Herbert detractors as well, or name any quarterback for any roster.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is overrated.
I mean, there are people making the argument that Patrick Mahomes is overrated, and Tom Brady is the best quarterback, and they won't have any other discussion. So, that's what I'm saying is there's always those people. So it depends. Do you want to put value to those people's opinions or not?
No, I just wanted to get that off my chest about Herbert because I'm sick of reading the slander.
Oh, it's valuable, and we will. Nick,
I have a feeling everyone in this chat, if asked who they thought the best quarterback ever was, might end up giving a homer pick.
Well,
I got a feeling it's gonna go Stafford, Brady.
That's so ridiculous. Cutler.
And then Cam.
No.
In recent history, it's Cutler.
Yeah. Time, McMahon?
Otherwise, before Cutler, it was Sid Luckman in the 40s. So that's not even the same NFL.
Honestly, I like discussions more than I like ranking. So, as long as your discussion is interesting to me, I would rather listen to that than you just rattle off 5 names. So that's always been my approach to these things. But for the first 15 minutes of the next show, you got it. We're going to be talking about this topic because I do like these kind of lead-ins. We bleed out the last episode. We lead in with the next one. I like this kind of format we got going. With that being said, though, good night, guys. Hopefully you win. Maybe you win first place. We'll review your lineup next week, mine this week, maybe yours next week. Good night.
Night, everyone.
Night, everybody.
Peace out.